All right, Madison Mackley with the Northwest Kansas radio station here with Senator Jerry Moran. We are at Colby Community College right here in Thomas Hall. It's the admissions hall for those who don't know, haven't been to Colby Community College. Senator Moran has graciously made it back to his home state of Kansas to come hang out here in the Northwest to get to talk to us a little bit and share about things going on in Washington. So thank you, Senator. It's always a pleasure to get to see you, and I like to see you without a mask this time.
Madison, great to be with you, and we hope that the COVID story is less and less of a story and people are safe and secure and we can get this behind us. Everybody still needs to be a little bit cautious, but be great when we're closer to something more normal than what we've been for a long time.
Yes, back to normal has been a statement that's been going on for a couple of years, and I'm glad we're hopefully getting a little bit closer to that here finally. But it's nice to have you back in our area. Where all are you stopping as your home?
Well, I'm away from Washington, D.C. because of President's Day. Some people get the day off. Most people work on President's Day. Congress takes the week off. But it gives me the chance to make the trek around our state. I've been in Kansas City, from Overland Park and Lenexa now to Colby and Atwood, Sharon Springs, Goodland, and Oakley. And we're having some useful conversations, at least to me, as I return to Washington, D.C. on Monday. And of course, the intervening circumstance of Ukraine has caused conversations about that. Normally, today we would have been talking about wheat prices, we would have been talking about lack of moisture, and we did talk about that.
Yes, we did.
I was hoping that my trip to Northwest Kansas would come to a halt because I'd get someplace and the snow was so deep and so wet that I couldn't get here, couldn't get any further. But unfortunately, that's not the case. When I return to Washington, D.C., my colleagues sometimes will ask, so what are people talking about? What are they telling you? Well, mostly we're talking about the weather, and it's the nature of our state about how important this is in so many ways, but how we earn a living in agriculture. I've also am visiting a couple of hospitals and a couple of high schools, in addition to my visit to Colby Community College and to Northwest Tech. And so what happens at Colby Community College, what happens in Northwest Tech has a huge consequence, as it does in our high schools, about the future of Kansas, the future of our country, and certainly the future of this part of Kansas. And our educational institutions here are an important component of whether or not we have the opportunity to keep our kids or to get our kids to return home and to be a part of a growing community. So conversations clearly about Ukraine, but a lot of concern about just how do we keep our hospital doors open. Mental health services has become a significant topic of conversation, the ability to get care and treatment for people who are in need of those services. And I'm always talking about and to veterans to find out how I can better serve them.
Yeah, that's great to hear. We all love coming back home. I came back home. I have a lot of friends that are back home in the same area as well. And that is something that we get a lot of comments from. I know I do, from friends who live in larger cities, is where do you go for health care? How do you get things? And if it can't get mailed to you, there's just not a lot of opportunities. So when you're speaking to these kids, how are you speaking to them in a way that might make them want to come back to small town America?
You know, I do visit with lots of high school students in particular, and often the question to them by me is, so have you figured out what you want to do next in life? And almost without exception, sometimes it's somebody going to the military or they have a job that's waiting them, but it's often off to an educational institution, usually someplace in Kansas. And sometimes people will tell me they're going out of state, and I'll say, that's okay, you can go experience the rest of the world, but we need you back here. And my goal in conversations with students is to try to encourage them to return to their hometowns, at least to their home state. And there's lots of opportunities, and particularly while we're here on the campus of Colby Community College, I would talk about the importance of vocational and technical education. We often tell our students, either directly or subtly, that to be a success, you've got to go away someplace. And we need to rid ourselves of this belief that to be a success, you got to go away. You can be a success by staying. And there are lots of opportunities with well-paying jobs and communities that desperately need you to be there. And there's a lot of satisfaction that comes from being part of a community that you may not ever get if you go off to the city and maybe you have a higher salary or something, but the satisfaction of where you live and who are your neighbors really adds a lot to the quality of life.
Yeah, it's a great benefit from actually living out here, getting closer to family, like you said, you know your neighbor. They're going to be the ones to first in and jump in and help if you need anything at all. So I think that's great. And you said you were talking to high schoolers, and I know that this is kind of a dooming experience for them to be able to be witnessing firsthand as opposed to in a history book. But with the situation going on in Russia and Ukraine, how are we able to communicate with the youth and just kind of explain what's going on without it looking so daunting?
Well, Rob and I have two daughters. They're both now well out of high school and well out of college. And one of the reasons I visit high school certainly is to see what's going on in education. But education policy, fortunately, is mostly a state and local issue, not a federal issue. But I want to know how 16, 17, 18-year-old young men and women are thinking. It's hard for me to connect with them. It's one of my most intimidating audiences is to be in a high school government class with, students who the guys fold their arms, and there's usually some girl there in the class who's like the smartest kid and try to entrap me and say something that's less than perfect. And they're intimidating to me. But I think it's important for somebody in the position that Kansans have given me to make sure that I do at least try to do my best to understand what's going on. What are they thinking? And it'll be interesting to when we complete the high school visit while we're out here. The high school visit's going to be in Sharon Springs. It will be interesting to see what they have to say about what's going on in the world. And not just 16, 17, 18-year-olds. We all want to set aside the things that are outside our immediate life. We don't want to be involved in Ukraine. We don't want to have another war. We don't want to worry about what's going on halfway around the world. But the reality is what goes on in this world now makes a difference. And you can't live in Sharon Springs or Brewster or Oberlin and be out of the rest of the world. There's no way to escape it, and therefore we have to deal with the challenges that are presented us. My primary interest in serving in Washington, D.C. has always been how do we make certain that rural Kansas, rural America has a future, and that it's more likely that the places that we call home will be around for a while longer. On the other hand, I have no choice, nor do Americans, but to deal with all the national and international issues that arise. In the meantime, while we're dealing with that, we're going to try to make sure we take care of farmers and ranchers and access to health care, and that we have broadband out here, and our schools are good, and that small business can survive.
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of segueing off of that, farmers and ranchers making sure that they're okay out here, we're going to most likely expect some commodity prices, fuel prices, cattle prices to change here in the upcoming weeks. So how do you think that farmers and ranchers can prepare for that situation?
Well, two things. I mean, one, this highlights that we aren't removed from the rest of the world, because regardless of our response to what goes on and has gone on in Ukraine and in Russia, we're already feeling the price. Mm-hmm. We're paying a price. One, the positive side perhaps is that you see that wheat prices have risen. Ukraine is the breadbasket of that part of the world, and expected shortage of wheat, inability to ship, means a consequence in Kansas. So at our local elevator, when they post the price, it has something to do with the rest of the world, not just what happens in Thomas County. There's a negative, obviously, and that's the price at the pump. Fertilizer prices, diesel fuel, and just for every consumer, farmer or not. And this is the point that I want to make certain that we pull the country together, the United States together. We have less division when it comes to our response to Russian aggression. But I also will be continue to be encouraging the Biden administration to change their policies as it relates to fuel, to energy. This is an administration that opposes the use of fossil fuels, oil, natural gas. I'm for all of the above, those things, plus solar and wind. We need to be energy independent, certainly more energy independent than we now are today. And the administration's policies are reducing our ability to do that. Now is the time, with the price at the pump what it is, regardless of Ukraine, but then you add Ukraine and oil supplies from Russia. Now's the time for us to be finding more oil, more natural gas, and meeting not only our own demands. And prices go up when there's a shortage of supply. Increase the supply, and the prices can come down. And we aren't doing that at the moment. In fact, I've watched with a smile, with concern on my face, as this administration has promised or tried to guarantee Europe that if Russia shuts off their energy supplies, that we'll be there to help them. We can only help them if we produce that energy ourselves. And so while we don't want to have a partisan fight over what's going on in Ukraine. We do need this administration to change its policies in regard to energy production.
Yeah, absolutely. And where would be the best place for consumers and the everyday person to go to get accurate information on oil and fuel and all of this as we are kind of, like I said, continuing on with the Russia-Ukraine situation?
Well, my easy answer to you and to this audience is that they should go to their local radio station and their local newspaper. I say that with a smile. There's truth to that. People today don't know who to trust. There's a lot of skepticism about everything, and I still believe that local journalism is a place that most people, listeners and readers, have faith in what is in their newspaper, their local newspaper, and what is they hear on local radio. Community journalism matters, and if we want to pull ourselves together now at this time in which the world is so messy, if we want to reduce some of the fight between Americans, we need a source of information that we can trust. So while I say it as a smile talking to a radio broadcaster with a newspaper man in the room, I would say that local news is about as good as it gets.
Yeah, we appreciate that. I really appreciate that personally, but we do appreciate you taking some time to come back home, be able to talk to all of us, and just take a little bit of time out of your day here.
Madison, thank you.
Thank you
Great
so
to
much.
be with you.
Appreciate
you.
it.